Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Be Sober podcast.
I'm just laughing because we've just had a right kerfuffle over me not wanting to record the podcast this time. And now I don't know whether I've recorded it to the cloud or my computer. And now I'm in a big like, about it. I
So,
think it's
what
to
she
the
means is
cloud.
not wanting to record it, is she means she didn't want to press the record button. So, Alex always presses the record button, right? And this morning, she's just decided she's gone, Are you recording it? Or what? And I'm like, What? Like, we've never, ever discussed this.
Can I
So then
tell you
I've
where it's
just gone
come
to do
from?
it. And I'm like, Well, no, you. So I've made her back horse because she's a control freak. Every time we go on a Zoom, it says, like, Do you want to
Reclaim host.
reclaim horse? So she reclaims it all the time. So you can keep it.
Well, I reclaim it out of habit more than out of controlling because I've always done it. But yeah, no, do you know why I've done it? Why I wanted you to have it? Because at the end of our podcast now, when you stop recording, you don't just press stop, it asks you a question. So it looks like I take ages to stop it, but I don't. I go really quick with it. And I wanted you
I'm
to
now
see.
used to waiting for that bit.
So I didn't really need to stop doing it, did I?
No, you didn't.
And I've
Especially like the
also
second
realized, and I
before.
know this has been a long time coming, guys, but my timekeeping really needs some work.
No shit.
Yeah, but I've said this before and I am going to say it again. And I do fully believe it's 20 odd years of being told the time by a bell. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, next lesson, off you go. Next lesson, off you go. So now I don't have any bell to tell me where to go or when to go. I think I've rebelled a little bit like, I don't have to do anything that the bell tells me.
Do you reckon that's what it
Well,
is?
it's more than 20 years, isn't it? If you think about it, apart from maybe let's take out 4 years that I actually had other jobs.
Yeah.
From being 4 to 40, I literally lived by a school bell of some sort or another, or a university timetable. I've literally had my life timetabled. I've only not been
That's what I
timetabled
mean. They're like prisons, them school. Get your kids out of school. All of you. Like
just
prisons.
just dropping that one in there for a little bit of controversy on a Saturday morning. But yeah, like when I really think about it, you live like 40 years on a timetable or a bell. Like, there's no wonder now I just can't do life without my timetable.
Well, you need to create your own bell then.
I need an alarm.
If that will help you, because honestly, as a person that like, and we were talking about this, so I know, and it's really nice to know what it is now, and it is a part of ADHD, like the timekeeping and or time like but time blindness. It is. And I do have that. But if I've got something and I know I've got something, I end up ridiculously early or I can't concentrate on anything else
Yeah.
until I get to that point. So for me, when somebody else is late and I'm really early, it's even later and it drives
Yeah,
me
yeah.
insane. So, like this morning, when you've gone, like, first of all, you'd put in 11 for us to start, which
In
is
the
always
diary
like
at 11.
8 starting at 11. It drives me insane. But this week, you'd put in 11 for whatever
Yeah.
reason instead of our new earlier
10.
time that we'd promised, 10. So I've gone, right. Then she rings me. You ring me at like 9 o'clock and you're walking the dog and we're having a little chat as I'm on the way to the vets. And you're like, right, will you be ready at 10:30? So I thought, right, okay, I will be, but I'd planned to do things up until 11 because you've put 11 in the calendar and you're always late. So I thought that would be 11:15. Anyway, you've said no, 10:30. I said,
Yeah.
right, okay. So I'm here at 20 past 10, obviously. 10:53.
No. I don't know what happened. Honestly, right? It's
Ten
not.
fifty. Like, honestly, inside, I'm still fuming.
The thing is though, right? There's no real reason. And obviously I can do time because like when we went out the other night to Cindy Lauper, I'm there on time. when I have to be somewhere, I've learned now, like from that radio interview that you had that time, that
Oh, that was the worst one ever.
that 7 doesn't mean 7, it means 6:30. So like I have learned to do that. Obviously, I'm not late for my clients. So
Yeah, because
like,
if people say like we're meeting at 7, they expect you to be at the place at 7, like not turning around the corner to park or
yeah, I get that. But I'm
like
over that and I'm doing it now. You can't like, I've made progress there. Let's accept that I've made progress
yeah.
because I have.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I've got a really itchy nose and it's driving me mad because I know I'm really sorry. Like, so anyway, it like I've made progress there. I can clearly do life because I've got a diary that I stick to, and my clients always get their hour and it works. And I'm like clockwork, I can time it
Is it because I
perfectly.
don't pay you? Is that what it is?
Oh, no,
I
you're
don't
not the
pay
only.
you for your time, so you're
No,
late.
no, no, because you didn't pay me on Sunday. I loved it. I arrived on time.
Yeah, but I got the ticket.
You did get the ticket. But
Exactly. That's
but
what it
no,
is.
it's not because of that. And I think, and the thing is, I really love our Wednesdays. So I look forward to this because it's a gap in my week out of my normal stuff. So I'm like, yes, this is a night. I love Wednesdays. I enjoy them. I look forward to them. Today, particularly, I'm going out for a Valentine's meal tonight with my husband. Everything's going to be lovely about today. There's no reason for me to be late. But I was late and I don't know why. Like, I planned in that time that I spoke to you to do my hair, to have if anyone's watching the video of this, you will see I didn't do my hair. I
Oh
planned,
no, it does look like you've done it. It looks
yeah, that's
nice.
only because I've blurred the background and it's cut all the wispy bits off. So basically, like, I planned all this stuff, do my hair, have a shower, have my breakfast, and I've done none of it. I actually couldn't tell you what I've been doing. I just don't know.
I do that if I'm left to my own
Well, I
devices and I
think that's
haven't
the
got
problem.
plans. Do you know
I
what I
think
mean?
that's the problem. I think I've had a gap of a couple of hours
Yeah,
left to my own devices, and I've, as usual, overestimated or underestimated the amount of time that I actually have before needing to be ready on here. And then what happened was at 1:30, when I'm supposed to be sat here, I thought, oh, I hadn't had my breakfast or made a coffee. And then I start at full speed doing everything with like, and I'm late. I'm already late. So yeah,
yeah.
anyway, it's an observation. I can't promise I'm going to change it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
might change it. I might.
Shall we talk about that we went to Cyndi Lauper on Sunday night? How
Yeah,
nice was that?
it was really lovely. The best bit about the whole thing was just being together, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah, it was really nice. I think without the pressure. So like the tickets were only booked the week before. I had to give Alex like pre-warning. So I'd done it in a impulsive moment. I'd seen Cyndi Lauper on the Graham Norton show. She just inspired me. I thought she was amazing. And then she said she was doing the farewell tour and she's in her 70s. And I was like, oh my God, like when would you see this woman again in Manchester? So I literally, as she was talking, I went on my phone and booked 2 tickets.
yeah,
And
because she's
I was like,
mental.
right. So then I've messaged Alex and gone like, right, do you want to come to Cyndi Lauper with me next Sunday?
So yeah, she's done this right, and you all know because I've said it before, and Lisa definitely knows, right? I'm really, really spontaneous in my on my own terms. So in my mind, the first thing I've done is gone, oh no, I'm not going. I
I
can't
knew
do
you
that.
would as well. I
Right,
knew
I can't
you'd
do that. I
freak
can't
out.
go.
It's a
And I don't know
Sunday.
why. I don't know why. See, I'm so weird. This is something so weird.
It's
Anyway,
not. It's not.
it is weird. I went, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going. So I rather than answering no, because I thought I know myself well enough to know that this might just be an impulsive no, I said, oh, what did I say? Like,
Oh no, I can't
it
remember.
was
It was
something really like, oh, that sounds interesting. Or it was something really
no, you'd
like,
like. I think you'd voice noted me, and you was like, "Why the hell have you got Cyndi
yeah,
Lauper
like,
ticket?"
oh, leave this with me. So I kind of procrastinated around it. Anyway, then Lisa said, you've got until 4 p.m. to decide, or I'm taking someone else. But that was enough. That was enough time to
Yeah,
decide.
that's
So
good.
I came to terms with it. I was like, yes, I'm going. We had a great time. It was good fun. Um,
I had to talk myself into it as well, you know, because I'd done it in an impulsive moment. So in that moment, and I've learned this about myself, is that in that moment, if somebody had plonked me in a Cyndi Lauper concert, I'd have been like, yay, this is brilliant. I really wanted to do this. But once I've booked it and then a week's gone by, like it came to Sunday and I'm like, oh, why did I book these? Like I've got all the parking started to worry me and the getting
See,
there
that
and
bit don't worry me.
like just I did start to get a little bit antsy about it, and so I did have to talk myself. So when I was talking you into it and saying like there's no pressure, we'll just go and it'll be, you
I
know
was
what, if
talking
we don't know all
yourself.
the songs it's fine. Yeah, so as much as I was telling you, I was kind of telling myself that as well, because I think concerts, especially when you're not drinking, can be kind of like, well, it's just different, isn't it? I used to drink at every concert I went to. It still shocks me how many people drive, you know,
It was
like,
good fun though, wasn't it? We
yeah,
had good fun. There was a moment on the way in where we both had a laugh as well. The woman who said something like, "I drank loads of wine."
oh, yeah, she was like, yeah, what did she say? And you did that.
She went, "Oh, and I had drank loads of wine, and I don't know what happened, but I looked at Lisa, you know, like be sober's non-judgmental and all that, and I went to Lisa."
It's like, you know, when you're together though, and you hear somebody say that, it's like all the outside noise stops, and
Yeah,
all you're in it, and all
yeah.
you hear is somebody going, I drank lots of wine. Like, I do it like if I'm ever out with Rob, or like we'll go to a supermarket and they go, oh, get home and have a nice glass of wine afterwards. And I can see him think, oh no, don't say it. Don't say
I
it.
don't drink. But the thing was that with stuff like that, it and it wasn't judgy, it was more fun than anything, wasn't it, when
Yeah,
we were
yeah,
doing it?
funny.
But yeah, everything stops, you're right, and you just hear. And you also it brings you really back into reality because I forget that people still do that.
Yeah,
Like it's like,
yeah.
boom, reality bomb, have that.
Yeah, I get just as shocked. Like, I forget that people do that. But then also, you know, like when we sat down and the guy next to me had a can of water as well.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forget that other people do that as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how
Yeah.
self-important that I think I am, that I'm the only
The
person that
only
does.
one that is sober. Our guest is here.
Oh, brilliant. Can I
So
just say
shall
though,
we
before she comes in, that watching Cyndi Lauper do that True Colours was so iconic for me.
phenomenal. It was
Like,
brilliant.
I loved that. And like songs like that are what we used to sing as teenagers, and you know, like with a bottle of cider going down, going down.
Instead, we
This,
had a can of water and a hot dog.
yeah, and it was just so nice. I really, really enjoyed it. And I loved spending the evening with you. It was dead nice.
Oh, me too. It was brilliant. Should we let Angela in?
Yes,
Are we
let's.
saying anything about Angela, or should we just get her to
Yeah, we'll get her to do a bit of an introduction. Well, we can do while she's coming in.
go
So
on then? You do it.
Angela, aka the running granny, we first met at I wanted to say Be Wild, but it
It
was a
was
Lover Wild, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah.
And we've
Love her
been
well event.
promising to do this ever since. I don't know why it's taken so long
I
to get
don't know
her on
why
the
it's taken
podcast.
so long. So hopefully, Angela will be able to put a camera on because at the minute she is in the room, but we can't see her. So
She's
yeah.
like the little hero, Angela. I love it.
Well,
Rob knows all about the running granny and he's never met her yet. But I honestly, I talk about it so much with my mum as well.
oh, there you go. You're muted, Angela. You might just need to unmute and then we can get you to introduce yourself a little bit. There you go.
Right. I don't know why it does that every time, because whenever I had a Zoom call yesterday and it's always set to go with audio and video, but it just doesn't. So
I think it's us. I think it's the people who are hosting the meeting that have their settings as enter people on
Ah,
mute.
we should change that then.
Yeah, we probably should.
We should change that. So we're recording straight away, Angela. We're going straight in just in case you'd not been pre-warned about that.
I think I did say. I think I
um,
did. Oh,
Oh, I'm so
fantastic. There
glad
you
you
go.
moved that camera then, because I was like, I didn't know how to tell you.
Oh, I would have just said, Angela, I can only see half your head.
sorry, I'm sitting down with I'm actually sitting with my feet up. So yes.
Well, that makes a change, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're not normally feet up, are you? You're normally on them.
This is true, but yes, I yeah, it's just my new way of working. So
Oh, well, I
I'm
like
still,
it. You know
I'm
what? I
still,
might actually join you. I love putting my feet up. My daughter's got a chair at her desk with all sorts of things on it so she can work with her feet up.
Oh,
well,
sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
It's like a proper ADHD chair.
well,
We
I'm still in recovery mode, I think, but I've already been out and done a couple of hours this morning, so I feel as if I've earned it.
So
You've
we first met you about 3 years ago, I think, at a Love Her Wild event, and it was our first time we'd ever attended a Love Her Wild event. And you talked there, you did the opening talk, and I think you'd just done Land's End to John O'Groats, or you were doing it, and you'd done some runs along some major peaks up in the Lake District.
So yes, so John O'Groats Land's End was believe it or not, September 2019, which seems an awfully long time ago, and yet
Yeah.
some aspects of it still seem like they were yesterday. But then I'd done that year, though, so there was, I think we showed the film, didn't we? 62 or
Did your film.
62, which was my attempt at something called the Steve Parr Round, which is actually the 61 peaks of 2,500 feet or above in the Lake District. But I'd added an extra one to make it 62 because it was my 62nd birthday. So
Fabulous.
that
I loved that. I've got to tell you, when we went to this Love Her Wild event, it's dead special to me that weekend because one, it was like the beginning of what became our Be Wilds for Be Sober, and it just helped me so much that weekend. But I remember specifically your video coming on, and I was sat there. Also on this weekend is when I first realized that I could possibly have ADHD, because there was a girl that got up and spoke, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, the whole way through. So as part of that, I find sitting very difficult. And we got told that this video was going to come on, and it was like, I can't remember how long it was exactly, and the insides of me was bursting to get out of my chair before it came on. I'm thinking, oh, I don't think I can sit here, I don't think I can sit still. I knew there was people behind me, I was all fidgety. And then the video came on, and I was like, oh my God, I loved it. It was so inspiring. And from that very moment, like, it's giving me goose pimples now thinking about it. I was just so inspired by you, like doing not just with the running, but actually how you got to this, because you have not always been a runner, have you?
Oh no.
So would you mind, because we know the story, but obviously people listening don't, would you mind just kind of taking us back a little bit to the beginning and how you did get into this in the first place?
Okay. So yeah, the story goes back to my late 40s, I suppose, where so in fact would have been mid 40s. So 2006-7, I had 3 family members who all became ill at the same time, seriously ill at the same time, within the space of three months. And then they sadly all died in a 4-month period within so that was
Wow.
the September, the October, and then January 2007. Being the physician in the family, people would come to me for information, but generally seemed to forget that I was actually emotionally affected by what was going on as well. But that's not a new, wasn't a new position for me to be in then, or indeed even now. So, but what happened for me was that after the last one died, I had a couple of weeks off work, and then went back and just threw myself into work, and still had a couple of the children at home, but basically I any if anything needed doing, I would sort of say, oh yes, I'll do that, and nobody ever And people just want jobs to be done, things to be off their hands. And what happened was over the next couple of years, I got to the point where I was actually working something like 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. Work, doing all these, had various leadership roles at work, and then I would come home in the evening, and as soon as the kids were fed, I would then start, dealing with email and what have you. And then come 2009, so it's a couple of years on, and I started to get glimpses of myself, this kind of, I wasn't the person I was seeing, I didn't recognize. Essentially what had happened, I was overworked, and I'd become very, very overweight, very unfit. Not that I was supposed to have been relatively fit beforehand, and certainly very unhappy with life. And even though I kept getting these glimpses, I didn't actually do anything about it until I started to get one or two little health issues myself. And just had this moment one day, I suppose, where I thought, if you don't do something about this, you're not, if you don't help yourself, you're not going to be in a position to help other people.
Yeah.
So I started taking what I now look back on and call my small steps, which in the first instance, I just started going out for a walk in the evening. And it was incredibly hard to do that. Not so much the physical aspect of going for a walk, although that had its own challenges. But it was actually taking that time for me, that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and saying, and walking away from household chores, or knowing, or those email that I would be dealing with, or whatever else it happened to be. But nevertheless, I did it. And yes, physically it was, so mentally it was challenging. Physically it was challenging as well. So for the first little while, I would just go for this walk. But then I decided, well, it's I couldn't help but feel that it was in some ways a waste. I wasn't making the best use of my time. So one of the next things that I did was to take the phone with me, and I went through. I decided I would get in touch with people that I had lost touch with, because when folks were ill a few years prior, you don't have time to keep in touch with everybody. And then in the intervening period where I was working, I didn't. But then I went through this process in my head of thinking, well, what if they don't want to talk to me?
Yeah.
What if they put the phone down on me? And you have these 20 ways to kill an idea.
Yeah.
So it took a little while to summon up the courage to make those calls. And when I did, there were things like people would sort of get a bit concerned. Well, in the first instance, people were actually delighted to hear from me. So again,
That's amazing.
This is one of the small steps that I promote. Is it's very hard to keep in touch with people sometimes, but you do need to invest in friendships and in relationships. So try and encourage people to pick up the phone, particularly these days when so much communication is done via text or WhatsApp.
Yeah.
You do need to speak to people. Even better if you can arrange to see people face to face, because even though, like we're here on Zoom now, and it's one of the big challenges that came out of COVID, you miss the chemistry that takes place when you're physically in contact with people across, in a room or out walking. There's, that chemistry is really important to human function.
Angela, sorry to interrupt there, but you're so right. Like, and I'm just trying to think about the people who I talk to on the phone, and if other people kind of have a think now of who they actually talk to while on the phone. Like Alex and I speak all the time on the phone.
Every day.
Like we speak, and this is probably, if you think about why our relationship is so close. Like my children, I do speak to, I work with my daughters and they still ring me, you know, when they're in the car, just
They ring
for
you
a
when you
chat.
leave the office, don't they?
Yeah, literally. Bethany, my eldest, rings me every morning. She rings me. She's taking Isabella, my granddaughter, to nursery, and she's like, "Morning," and I said, "Morning" to her, morning to Isabella. And I think I've never thought about it till now, but what a good thing that is for my granddaughter as well to kind of do. But then I'm thinking about other people and how nerve-wracking it would be for me to pick up the phone to some old friends or family members. Like the thought of it gives me, like, it makes me a little bit anxious.
Yeah.
It's funny, yeah. My dad's side of the family, I wouldn't say I'm estranged from them, but they're distant. They're distant relatives. But you've just what went through my mind when you said that was a couple of weeks ago. I was sat around at my mum's house and we couldn't remember the name of one of the cousins on my dad's side. So I text one of the other cousins on that side who I've had loose contact with over the years. Text him and said, "What's Uncle Stan's eldest son called?" And I waited, and then I put the phone down. The next thing, it lit up. Michael, and that's my cousin's name. Picked up. I was like, "Hi, Mike." And like, and he went, "Oh, hi, Alex. I was just thinking about what you said and thought I'd pick up the phone to you. We haven't spoken in 3 or 4 years." And I thought, wow, like it was dead easy to talk to him, but I wouldn't have done it the other way. So when you're saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, I should have picked up the phone to him in the first place. Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to do
Yeah,
because
it
we
is.
don't know. We're all, I think we're all fearful of the sort of reception that we might get.
Yeah, the
And,
rejection
and
maybe.
it's the long, the greater the distance, the easier it is not to put yourself through that across that comfort zone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that barrier. That applies to so many things. But yeah, but I would talk to people, and one of the things that they would, where I live, you can't really go anywhere without going up some sort of a hill. They're not really hills these days, but they seemed like it at the time. But they
Well,
would.
they won't be to you now, but I can assure you, I go to the lakes quite a lot, and they have a lot of hills.
Well, I'm just thinking for where I am from home. It seems you can't get in or out of my house without going up a slope. But yeah, so they'd get a bit concerned, saying, "Well, what are you doing? You sound very out of breath." And yes, I would be out of breath because I was very unfit. But over time, a number of things started to happen, and so my clothes started to be a bit looser on me, and I think that I'd given myself that break from work, so I think the children found me a little bit nicer to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started adding different things. So I looked at what I ate, I looked at what I was drinking, I looked at, various other social things. But there's a whole list. I think there's a list of about 30 small steps that I identified a few years later, which I've then published on the Running Granny website there, which are the small steps that I took. But including things like volunteering and going out and just learning new skills, things that just attract you. You think, oh, I wonder if I could do that.
It's like an all-round well-being thing you've done, isn't it? Because I'm hearing connection, spiritual, like, it's not just physical. Yes, physical, but there were all these little
Oh, yeah,
well-being things that have come in.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
I
but
love this. I've just been looking at your website as well, and one of the small steps is about drinking. And I know you've said like about you drink alcohol from a smaller glass,
yeah,
drinking more water,
mhm,
offering to be the driver and things like that.
yeah, absolutely. If alcohol were discovered today, it would never have been a licensed product. It would have been banned. It's a toxin at the end of the day and does so much damage to us. But
And you're not a non-drinker, are you, Angela? So just so that people don't think, well, you're not a complete non-drinker.
no, I rarely drink. But I'm sort of a never say never person, really.
Yeah.
So at my son's wedding last year, I had a glass of champagne. That's all. That was the sum total of the alcohol I had throughout the whole of the day.
That's what I mean. If I could do that, I'd still be a drinker. Do you know what I mean? But I just wouldn't.
Well, it can be hard. I rarely drink. I do. I can generally remember the last time I had a drink, which is, I think that that's pathognomonic of somebody who has the potential to be to be addicted to it. But yeah, so periodic, but it's not it doesn't suit me to drink. I was having a conversation with somebody a few years ago now, a former colleague, back in my first career when I worked in the computer industry. And at that time it was early 80s, then it was such a big part of working life. So every Friday lunchtime, a big number of folks in the department would go to the pub together, and it would be a slightly extended lunchtime and then drive back to the office.
That was quite normal, though, I think.
It was the attitudes were very, very different.
Do you know what I was just thinking? When we used to have the New Inn pub, Alex, we was right down near a hospital, and all the young doctors and nurses were regular. You know, all the student doctors and nurses were regulars in our pub, actually.
And a lot of nursing staff in there, weren't there? As well?
Yeah. We had some amazing times. We really did. There was many times I stopped over in the nursing quarters with some of my friends. But it's just bizarre to think about it now. Like, that just wouldn't happen now. It was
Less
never
likely.
even questioned, even in that industry, if you like.
Well, I think some of the, I mean, we've seen this before. Glamour magazine published something years ago, and it was incorrect what they'd done, but it was based on a study that was valid. And basically the study says that the study shows that the more intellect you have, graded by how many qualifications you have, so academic intellect, the more intellect you have, therefore the higher potential you have in the industry of becoming a professional with a high stress job, like, you know, in medicine itself, and therefore you are more likely to drink. It was reported as people who drink are cleverer. That's what it was reported as, but obviously the link was the other way. That just the link.
Oh, they got some stick for it.
They got some stick and they retracted it, because we did go all out for it. But the idea was, though, that obviously the more up the ladder you climb, the more stressful your job becomes. Therefore, the more likely you are to use alcohol to relieve stress. And it's quite common to find super high paid professionals who are addicted to substances. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I, at that point, I'm not suggesting you are addicted to substances, Angela, but can we go to what you do in the medical field? Because this is also relevant. You did a workshop about bones, didn't you? And I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was, so I went into medicine late. So I trained in my 30s, qualified in my mid-30s, did my medical training, and then I did surgical training, and then I did specialist training in orthopedics. And my special area of interest within that, though, was with old people who had hip fracture.
Yeah.
And from there, I developed an interest in osteoporosis and bone health. So so that's where that comes from.
I've quoted you a million times, by the way, when you talk about the life expectancy post hip fracture.
Say that again.
I've quoted you millions of times. So you said something about the life expectancy on average post surgery for a hip fracture.
Well, so 30% of people who have a hip fracture will only survive about a year. So, but that, yeah, there are, it can be the average age of somebody with suffering a hip fracture these days is around 84.
Yes.
So, and many of those individuals will have a variety of long-term health problems.
Yeah.
Some of the one or more of those problems might have contributed to the fall, which led to the fracture in the first instance. So many of those people will be suffering frailty, not all of them. But of course, with that frailty, there is a higher likelihood of falls and fractures. So yes, but the other thing around hip fracture is that getting people back to the residence from which they came can be very difficult because many of them lose their mobility. So the hip fracture can lead to a loss of mobility and a loss of independence, even if they had been reasonably independent beforehand. And that can be for a number of reasons. There may have been a delay in getting them to theatre. For every day's delay, they lose confidence, but they lose muscle mass. And generally getting them back on their feet can be a problem. They may have complications associated with the surgery, or the recovery.
And they can lose connection with people as well because of the fact they can't get out and about, can't they?
Well, that may have happened before as well. That may have been increasingly happening. So you can see lots of patterns occurring. Having the confidence to get up and move again is very hard for people. And even in younger people who, if you find yourself in hospital for a number of days, 3 or 4 days, you very quickly become institutionalized.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. So, and that can happen to the best of us, whatever condition we're in. But when you're older and, feeling vulnerable as you are, and, having had a fall, a fracture, a surgical procedure, and everything else that's going on around you and trying to take it all in, it's little wonder really that many people that may not feel like going back and living on their own again, as many of these people are.
Yeah.
I've got so many questions to ask you, Angela.
I was just going to say about my mum. I was just literally going to make a comment to say when my mum fell down the stairs just in September and she broke her spine in 2 places.
Gosh,
she's 73 now. But the first thing I did, and it's based on the fact that obviously, I do have the background, I'm a PT now, but also it rings really clear in my ears when you were talking about resistance training and getting back to building the muscles up, to rebuild the balance, to build the muscle around the bone, to protect the bone. First thing I did, Christmas, bought a set of dumbbells. Sorry, Lisa, go on, your question.
It's all right. I think from when we went to the Love Her Wild, you really, because I sat and I was never very good at school either, Angela, and I absolutely loved your session you did as well. So that was really good for me to sit there and learn things.
Do some science.
Yeah, and I didn't retain the information as much as I would like to because I've tried re-quoting you, but I'm not very good at this. So I'm always telling my mom, strength. You need to work on your strength, Mom. And you'd said something about the weight on that you bear. I can't even remember how you said it. Do you remember?
Yeah, something about how much weight you bear on your knees for every pound of weight on your body or something.
Oh, yeah. So for every pound, for every pound, if you whatever you weigh, for every step you take, you put 4 times that amount through your knees and 3 times that amount through your hips with every step.
I need to write this down because I keep trying to tell Rob this and I forget.
So,
Times your weight by 4 and that's through the knee, and times your weight by 3 and that's through the hip.
well, yeah, or you can think of it in different ways in terms of encouraging, people who, if they're on a weight loss journey, for example. I mean, whatever goals we set ourselves, there are going to be times when we look as if we're, when we feel as if we're achieving those, and then there are going to be times when we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most challenging things, I think, for people on a weight loss journey is the fact that it doesn't matter how hard we try, weight fluctuates. There are some natural fluctuations depending on our age, what we eat, how hydrated we are, and so on and so forth. And so people will get demoralized if they feel they had been losing, reasonably well, but then this week they've maybe only lost half a pound or a pound. But the fact is that in terms of the load that they're putting through their knees with every step they take, that pound is actually worth £4.
Yeah.
So, and if somebody bemoans the fact, well, I was hoping to lose 2 stone, but I've only lost, 7 pounds in however long. Well, actually, that's 2 stone less they're putting through each knee with every step they take. These things become ever more important, particularly through perimenopause, when our natural tendency is to put on weight. And then going into later life, for those people who have osteoarthritis developing, it can actually change the mindset and the focus with motivation. If people realize that actually it may not look like a big number on the scales, but the benefit they're delivering for their mobility is so much greater.
And is that the same for men and women, Angela? I mean, I know the perimenopause bit isn't, but in terms of
well, men tend to put on weight as well, don't they?
Yeah.
But it's
Right, I've wrote that down and I'm going to memorize it, because honestly, it's been years now I've been trying to say that. It has been years, so I'm so grateful.
Did this knowledge, so obviously, if we just go back a little bit now, so you talked about how you started to take the small steps, you went on your own weight loss journey or health journey, should I say, really, as well as weight loss in the mid-40s. Did your knowledge around the hip surgery?
This was actually early 50s by this time. So
was all this feeding into now your journey to get fit, get strong?
I don't think I had a focus particularly on getting fitter or indeed getting stronger. I think it was trying to retract from the situation that I saw myself in, which was a downward trend rather than an upward trend.
So you were moving away from the stick, not the carrot.
At some point, and I've thought about this a few times, at some point I should sit down and actually think about where I would be today if I hadn't taken those steps.
Yeah.
What I would look like, what I would be doing, and so on. But anyway, that's another story. So yeah, I wasn't actively, I didn't have an active goal, as it were, to achieve a particular weight or a goal of any description, really, other than to reverse the trend that had been occurring and to take some control, to take some responsibility for where I was and where I was going.
Do you know what I love about that, Angela, actually, is that, sometimes when we get people on that have done like these big challenges, marathons, walks, I can't wait to talk about the spine challenger that you did. But like, when we hear people, they've had a moment and they've gone, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an Ironman, or I'm going to do this challenge. And actually, you've not done that, which says a lot for being kind of in the present moment and just taking them small steps without that pressure. Because I know a lot of people do put pressure on themselves to do these. They'll book a 10K running or And then sometimes that can kind of work the opposite, if you like. So I like that you've done it this way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There are drivers though as well. Different people have different drivers. So I'm definitely a move towards the carrot person. And that's what I just said with that analogy. Whereas it sounds like you're move away from the stick kind of person, Angela. Like, you know, certainly in this instance.
I don't know. I think I've never thought about it like that.
You've never thought about the carrots or the sticks.
I like the carrots and the sticks.
Well, I've not thought about it in that way. I'm not somebody who celebrates success. I find it very difficult to see things as successful.
Do you see it more as a like relief? So when you do something, are you kind of like, instead of, yay, I've done it, you're like, oh, thank God I've done that. It's done. It's over.
No, I just get on with the next thing. That was just something that was on the calendar, needed to be done. It's just tick lists. Then, to be honest, life's too busy for me for a lot of it for me to think too much about it.
Yeah,
there's a lot of there's some history around that. A lot of history, which I've actually started to write a book. So I won't deal with any of that in this conversation.
Jesus.
Right, well, we're gonna get you back
because it's too much of a spoiler, I think.
I get it. We're gonna
I
get
want to
you
read
back.
the book though. Now you've just done a great job of making me buy the book when it comes out. So keep us in the
Well,
loop.
I need to get back to writing it, but
I'll listen when it's on Audible.
Yeah, so I don't yeah, where did things change? I think I've always been naturally curious. I've always I suppose I've always had some sort of mountain to climb, whatever it happened to be, whether work-wise or academically or otherwise. But it was 3 years into those small steps. It was 2012, early 2012, when I saw an advert from somebody who was setting up a small group for runners, for mature women. And I thought, I wonder if I could do that. And so I made a note of the number and the name. But I then had 3 weeks of my 20 ways to kill an idea. What on earth are you thinking about doing this? You look ridiculous. You'll be at the back. You'd hold everybody up. You couldn't possibly do. What will people think? But it took me 3 weeks before I picked up the phone and spoke to her. Anyway, she's become a really good friend and was a huge inspiration to me. So I joined her little group, and within a few weeks, of talking to her, I learned that she was how old was she then? She would have been 67, I think, when I first met her. And she had started running herself when she retired at the age of 62.
Wow. That's amazing.
And she was planning to she was working towards doing something called the Joss Naylor Lakeland Challenge, which is a 48-mile linear run across the Lake District from Pooley Bridge in the east to Greendale Bridge at Wasdale in the west, taking in 30 peaks and 17,000 feet of ascent. And I just thought this was this sort of left me speechless, really. But what left me more concerned was some of the inadvertent adventures, shall we call them, that she found herself on while she was out there recceing this route on her own. Map reading skills were not necessarily forte. And I mean, she always got herself out of her scrapes. Clearly she did when she came home. But I just bizarrely, because I had no experience myself whatsoever, I decided that she shouldn't really be out there alone, and maybe I could go out there with her. no idea what I was letting myself in for. And at least I'd be out there with her. She wouldn't be on her own. So I sort of tentatively suggested I'd come along, and I'm not sure whether I was. I can't really remember exactly how I felt when she said, "No, that would be great." Um, so I then bought myself my first pair of fell shoes, and a running rucksack, and I suppose, cliche, the rest is history. But
Yeah.
it obviously it isn't. But we had some great adventures, and um, I discovered just the freedom and the liberty of being on hilltops. And then I supported her when she attempted it that year to do the challenge, but she fell and damaged her back. But the following year, when she did complete the challenge, and she was the oldest female to do so at the time, at the age of 68, I did the whole thing with her.
Wow.
And so that was a pretty memorable 24 hours. And yeah, so we got to the end, and Joss Naylor himself used to come out if he was there, to see people in at Greendale Bridge, because it was actually literally yards from his house where you finished. And she'd completed it. She had, at her age, she had 24 hours to do it, and she completed it in 23 hours and 58 minutes.
Wow.
And he came out and he said to her, he said, "Ah, well, you made the most of your day, lass."
I love that, actually. That kind of like really brings it down to earth, doesn't it? You've made the most of your day. We all have the same amount of hours, I suppose, don't we, in the day? It's
But yeah, so she's she was a great inspiration to me. Just having the guts to take that on,
yeah.
and doing it as she did.
I mean, you've done lots since then, obviously. That's just the start. But what's been your most challenging thing you've done?
Most of the most many of the things have been challenging because where you start from. So it's, my curiosity was piqued. If I can do that, then not so much if I can do that, but if the human body can do that, then what else can it do?
Yeah.
What more can I push? What more? Not so much what more can I push it to do, but what else is within is within the capacity? How and there's something I hold on to, which is that it's not a challenge if you know you can do it. So there are a number of events which I love, for the events themselves, that I've gone back and done multiple times, simply because I love the event, or I love the route, or I love the people that are working on the event. But the first time you do these things, generally, if you, as I say, it's a challenge if you're not sure you're going to be able to complete
Yeah.
it.
I've wrote that down as well.
So
I'm just like this.
It's so true. I've never thought about that.
I
If you know
know.
you can do something, it's no longer a challenge. That's why it's
no.
perhaps,
So
yeah.
so
I like
I
that.
think in terms of what's been the most challenging and the most difficult thing, every time I've taken a step in a different direction, that has been the challenge and the difficult thing at that time.
Yeah.
And there are always factors that confound your event, or your experience of the event, or your ability to perform in an event. Factors that you can't necessarily predict are going to happen. Injury, for example. Weather can completely muck up what you're doing. It's and some of these big challenges aren't just about your physical capability and capacity to do them. They are the level of skill that you have, the level of experience that you have of using the kit that you've got with you, choosing the right kit to take out with you from even within, even so there's the, you mentioned the spine just now, so that's the most recent thing I've done. There's a decision to make about what. So you have a set. The race directors, quite rightly, of something like that have a mandatory set of kit that you need to have.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with it or not, and there are those that don't necessarily agree with the weight of the kit that people have to carry, but that's, those are the rules of the game. Don't question that. And in practice, I always take far more with me than the mandatory kit suggests, because I know I'm a small person. I've got my surface area to weight ratio is so much greater than a lot of others, which means I'm going to lose heat more quickly. I'm going to be more affected if I get wet.
Yeah.
When you get wet, you lose heat at a much greater rate than when you're sort of staying dry. So there's a choice to be made about what kit and how much kit you can put in your drop bag for the checkpoints. But you've got a weight limit on that. I tend to overload. So my kit was almost at the 20k weight limit.
That's enough to be carrying around it's an extra 20
I know,
kilograms on top.
This is for the drop bag that gets taken from checkpoint to checkpoint.
Right, yeah.
So the weight in my rucksack was around, I think, about 8k, something like that.
Still a lot.
Well, it was, particularly as I only had surgery a few months before, and I wasn't allowed to carry a rucksack until literally 4 weeks before the event.
It was knee surgery you had, was it?
Knee surgery, yeah.
Like, what the heck? How have you gone from knee surgery to doing the spine challenge in that
Can I
time?
ask you as well? Can you explain what the spine challenge is? Because I, for one, don't know, and I bet some other people won't know. So if you explain what the challenge is and what you did as well.
Okay, yes, sorry. So the spine is the Pennine, the whole of the Pennine Way from Edale in the Peak District to Kirkyettam on the Scottish borders.
Incredible.
268 miles long. That's the full spine. And that was where the race started some years ago. And it's one that I had watched the participants on their trackers, and found myself the allure of the whole thing was quite magnetic for me, because it would have represented such a huge challenge for me, given that I get hypothermic very quickly once I'm 24 hours plus out with sleep, and I'm sleep deprived. But I just found the whole thing fascinating. Over the years, they've added more events. So they've split the route. So the first 108 miles presents a race called the Spine Challenger South. And now they've added Spine Challenger North, which is the 160 miles of the northern section. And that's the event that I've just taken part in.
Incredible, absolutely incredible.
Again, it started in winter, so generally starts the second weekend in January. So you're
of all the times
you're exposed to winter conditions out there, which can vary considerably, as they did this year. And those conditions you can split into two. You can look at the weather itself, but you can also look at the ground conditions.
Yeah.
So this year, the weather was actually not a problem. Let's put it this way, if you're not unused to going out onto the hills in, variety of wind and snow and hail and rain and so on, then you're not going to be meeting, this year you weren't meeting anything you hadn't seen before weather-wise. The problem this year, or the challenge this year, was the ground conditions.
Yeah, because we'd had so much rain, and then there was the ice, and then it went back to rain. And
so in the week before, there was a lot of snow
yeah,
along much of the route. And certainly those that started in Edale for the Challenger South and for the main spine. And there's also something called the sprint as well, which they have, that's the first 46, 48 miles, just the first checkpoint, which goes in the south. For those people, they were at times, from what I've seen, I mean, they had some fantastic landscapes to as a vista for the whole of those first 108 miles with the snow, but they were also struggling with snow that was up to thigh deep in places. And they were breaking trail through that, the front runners. But what happened then on the Sunday night, over the Sunday, we started to get this rapid, massive thaw taking place along the route. And so when we started on the Monday morning, we had some of the thaw that had taken place. So it was starting to get a bit slightly softer on the top, but then it was ice underneath. So I wore my micro spikes for pretty much the whole of the first 40 miles because of the conditions.
Wow.
Underfoot.
And did I read this, that you said it was better to be one of the dots than watching the dots? Did you
I
say
saw
that
from
somewhere?
dot watcher to
Absolutely.
participant.
Terrible FOMO if you're sitting at home watching these dots.
Do you know what I've got to ask you, Angela? And I'm so conscious of time. And me and Alex promised ourselves that we were going to be really good at timekeeping.
We are going to be really good. Go on, Lisa.
We're really, really trying, but this just seems so much to talk about. But what I do want to ask you, when you have got something like so long and challenging, like, and you were saying before, it's not just about the physical aspect, it's about the mental challenge, I'd imagine, as well, with something like that. Like, do you get them moments of self-doubt of like, I can't do it? And like, if you do, how do you kind of overcome that?
And if you don't, why don't you?
Yeah, like, are you crazy?
I think this time, so 2024 was a very difficult year for me. I had another sort of annus horribilis, if you like, with just a variety of things that went wrong for, health issues and so on. I lost a good friend, and so not so much things that happened to me, but things that happened to other people that I support. And it was always going to be a tough year anyway, because of some running for some of the work that I got on with my social enterprise, delivering workshops and so on. And you have to enter this event a year before, literally almost a year before it starts. So I'd entered last at the end of January or beginning of February last year. I'd actually attempted it last January, but I already had a knee injury when I went out there, so I wasn't. I knew I wouldn't complete it last year, and I didn't. But I entered again with the expectation that somehow or other my knee would get sorted throughout the year, which it eventually did with surgery in the middle of August. But then I had a very intensive I had intensive prehab stuff to do, and then rehab afterwards. And I really didn't get very much training, what I would have felt was training done for it.
Yeah.
So very little running, not even very much time on the hills. So my knee was always going to be, was the question in my mind. That was the doubt in my mind as to whether I was going,
So it was more the physical kind of aspect.
Very, very much so. But I have a coach, and I've been working with him for 2 years now, and I've learned to have faith in, to trust the process and to trust what he says. And the decision was taken really. So my surgeon's input, and my coach was very meticulous about making sure that I did what my surgeon was
Yeah.
worked within the limits of what he wanted me to do and the timescales. But I majored on strength work. So I went back into the gym 5 days after surgery, totally taking my whole weight. So I used the Smith machine and took my whole weight on the Smith machine,
Brilliant.
did the actual mobility exercises, going through the range of motion and so on, without putting weight through the knee, and gradually built that up. And actually, there's a video, I've produced a video actually somewhere or other on social media, which shows that process. So that's where my efforts went. And I suppose I had to park any doubts that I had, around the faith that I have in my coach's ability to target achieving what I'm setting out to do. And he was right. So
You've done amazing. Like, to
It
come back from that
was the point
surgery.
where you thought, like I'm trying to get in your head and I don't know, I can't, because I don't understand what you're doing in your mind by doing, like, when you are out there and it's cold and you're tired and you're like, is there a point where you think, oh fuck it, I'm gonna stop? Do you know what I mean?
So when I was out there, I didn't get cold once. I had the right layers on. I made the right choices. If there's one thing that when I reflect back on what I did, there's one thing I'm actually proud of, and it's not usual for me to be positive about anything I've done. But I risk assessed the opportunity cost of every decision that I made, even when towards the end I'd only had 4 hours sleep in the whole 4.5 days. I was still making those judgments on the choices that I was making. I did.
So measured, Angela. You're so measured.
I feel like you detach your mind from your body at stuff like this. Like, I think that's the only way you can do it. Like,
it's literally, she's gone like this though, like a really measured, logical response of, right, I don't want to die. What do I need to do?
it may be looking at your body as like what you said earlier on about what the human body can do. So I suppose maybe when you see it like that, it's a little bit,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Maybe that helps overcome the mental challenge of it.
I mean, at the end of the day, being able to train the body to do stuff, it means you need to understand the physiology. But we're all unique. So whilst physiology is applicable to everybody, as individuals, the speed with which we can train, for example, the top speed we could attain, the amount of weight we can carry, that will all vary. We will all have a maximum. But I don't think any of us ever truly achieve whatever our potential might be at any point in time.
Yeah.
And there's an element of that's what you're chasing. I'm coming back off 3.5 years, nearly 4 years of a variety of different injuries, COVID and a year of long COVID, where I had brain fog and chronic fatigue, basically long, the fatigue. And I still think sometimes it's as if I've got a little bit of that. Recovery this time has been 3 times longer than I've ever experienced before to get over the hump of what I've done. And I'm still.
Hence why the feet are up today. Hence why the feet
No,
are up.
I think it's just my, I don't know, that's just my inner sloth.
No, I don't think you've got one.
No, you're in a sloth, run away. We've
Go on. I've just got one more question because
before the question, I want to just say, I think first of all, we want to get a photo of you, so don't disappear at the end.
Right.
But second of all, like there's if you've got an inner sloth, then I'm sorry, it's gone. It's fully gone, because a sloth is what I do on an evening, right? You put your feet up, you lie there, you just let the world go by. Angela, I know from what you're saying, you're probably already planning your next mission.
Well, yes.
Go on, Lisa, ask your question to
I'm
finish.
so glad, because I couldn't listen to anything you said because I was so worried that I'd forget my question, right? So I've literally written it down. Right. Throughout this, I've been so inspired. I think you're an amazing woman, and I absolutely, honestly, I can't rave about you enough. I loved watching. I'm happy to be a dot watcher though. But what absolutely guts me is you saying that you don't really get proud of yourself, and it makes me
book,
really
Lisa.
sad.
It's in the book. It's in the book.
No, but what can you do that would make you proud?
To be honest,
Maybe you don't have an answer to that. Maybe
no, I
it's just
don't.
something to think about. Because honestly, I think you should give yourself a break. And I know it's hard, but it just makes me really sad to think that you're not like go in the mirror later and just go, you know what, you are bloody amazing, and I am so proud of you, because sometimes that's harder than the physical challenges. So
okay. I'm very proud of my 3 children, and I'm very proud of my 4 little granddaughters. And
which all came from you, by the way. That started with you.
and I see my role in life as to show my granddaughters what it is to grow old disgracefully.
Fantastic.
I love that.
Fantastic.
And now you can go and show them what it's like to be proud of yourself.
Can you give our listeners one little piece of advice? So they're on the sofa now, they've listened to this and they're thinking, I'd love to be like that, but I don't think it's for me. And they want to get going, but they're a little bit lacking in confidence. One piece of advice to get going, and we promise you we'll let you go then.
Well, I guess first of all, it's not specifically about running. I'd love it if, it'd be great if people did take up running. It's got so many, has so many benefits in so many different ways, not just the physical side of things, but also the social side of things. You meet people, once you start to move, you start to think about what you're eating, what you're drinking. It reduces your stress levels and you sleep better. And those 6 things are the fundamentals of what we need to be focusing on in order to improve our quality of life as we age. But I guess the advice would be to, I think about what it is you would like to do. So let's say you did want to take up a sport or go back and to do something that you did years ago. In the first instance, just sit down and try and examine why it is you don't do those things. What is it that's stopping you doing those things? We all have those 20 ways to kill an idea. We often think that, I will hear, and I've said this many times now, we will hear people say, oh, if I had my time over again. Well, actually, your time is now. You're not going to get your time over again. But whatever it was you wanted to do, you can still do it, although it might not look like it would have done when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s. You can still do it now, and you'll find a group of people willing to support you. So whatever it is you want to do, try and ignore the 70% of those, or rather not so much ignore the 70% of those thoughts that are negative, but actually capture them and then address them one by one as to why they are mythical thoughts almost. They're not really relevant. You can overcome them. So, and I think you have to systematically go through these things step by step in order to get to where you want to be. I guess the next bit, if I can give a second bit of advice, is understand your why. Why is it you want to do these things? It's all very well to be inspired, to go back and to maybe try and achieve a dream. But why are you doing it? What's the purpose of doing it? What are you going to get out of it? Or are you really doing it for you?
Yeah.
I love that.
If you can understand your why, then that will keep you going through the tough times. But the third bit is make sure you only take it in small bite-sized chunks. Don't attempt to try and reach for that rung of the ladder if it's just out of reach of your hands. Go for the bit which is right low down on the ground, where you can put that first foot up, and keep putting that first foot up until it becomes a habit, and then you can take the next foot up.
I love it. I just think you're such an inspiration, Angela. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And you are proof that, we hear a lot even within the Be Sober group, or people saying like, oh, it's too late now, I'm too old now, and you are literally proof, not just from all these challenges and amazing things that you're doing, but even like starting your career quite later on as well. I just think you've been amazing, and please will you come back when your book is due out?
I will do,
and we can get some more info.
Just on that point though, I mean, I deliver workshops and talk and so on.
We will link to your website as well.
In a variety of things, but society has this list that gets increasingly longer as we age, of all these myths and things that you're no longer given permission to do.
Yeah.
And we absorb that, and we take that on board because that's the culture we've grown up in, and systematically trying to knock some of those things out of society's ideas of what somebody at 60 should be doing or 70 should not be doing, is I think where we need to go in order to stop people thinking, oh, I'm too old to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to do loads of stuff when I'm starting now. I'm going to grow old disgracefully and I'm not going to run though.
Never say never. For every candle on your cake, you need to get more active.
I love that.
Ooh, more active with every candle on your
Wait,
cake. You're writing that one down. Write that one down.
Right, you end the podcast and I'll write it down.
Angela, hang on so we can just get a nice photograph, and we'll thank you so much. It's been lovely speaking to you again.
Oh, it's been lovely to be on.
Thank you.
Oh, that's my bit, the photograph. Hold on, let me.
All right, you're going to say bye-bye to everybody, Lisa?
Yeah, bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Enjoyed it. Right, you ready? Say cheese.